मोदी की ऐसी धूम मची, विपक्ष में ना कोई पार्टी बची। मोदी की ऐसी धूम मची, विपक्ष में ना कोई पार्टी बची। मैं पीएम बनूंगा, मम्मी राहुल जिद पे अड़े। मोदी की दहाड़ सुन दिलों में बढ़ गए बड़े बड़े। हाँ, मोदी की दहाड़ सुन दिलों में बढ़ गए बड़े बड़े।
Welcome, folks, to the latest episode of Bharatiya Janata Podcast. As has been tradition these days, Aditya is again missing, and we have a guest with us today. Where is Aditya, you ask? He's still busy at Kailasha, his dream home, his dream country. So today, I have, instead of Aditya, Ashik with me. I know Ashik, uh, well, I know is a stretch, but I know him through Twitter. He has been prolifically creating a lot of Twitter threads um, over his time on Twitter, and I have been fairly impressed by the amount of depth that he goes into in creating those Twitter threads. So, Ashik, I will ask you about you, but before I do that, how much time slash research does it take for you to kind of create the kind of threads that
Mhm.
you create on Twitter?
Um, well, it depends. Like some threads are basically my opinions, so they
Yeah.
obviously don't take a whole lot of time. But
The
when there are
mhm.
threads that revolve around something that is a little controversial, or I prefer to get my facts completely correct, so that involves a bit of research and everything. So I would say like around 2 to 3 hours if I'm completely into it. Or
Mhm.
sometimes it just might take like a couple of days if I'm just allocating a bit of time every day for it. Yeah,
Yeah, I also think like coming back to something that you've written, revisiting it allows
yeah.
chance to kind of filter it, make it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, Ashik, can we start uh, by you giving us a brief background of who you are?
Yeah.
I mean, and as I told you before recording the pod, what I am primarily interested in knowing is about how you kind of found your political identity in the larger Indian political context.
Okay. So I was born in India, obviously, in
Hmm.
Kerala, and my earliest memories of politics are like when I used to visit my grandfather. He used to be a fairly prominent political figure in Kerala, where my grandfather is from.
Hmm.
But not like federal level, not national level politics, but like state level, district level politics. He was a pretty prominent figure. So at that time when I was young, like I used to listen to him speak about politics to my grandmom or something, and obviously I was too young to like get a clear grasp of what's going on, but it seems like politics was always there in my family. And apart from my grandfather, I have like uncles and everyone who are like a little bit active in politics. And so that is pretty much where like I probably like got this like an inception, like I just got it embedded in my mind. And then growing up, obviously there was no politics in my life because it was fairly I guess in Kerala, like compared to other states probably towards the north, Kerala is a little more I don't know how to put this, like it is a little less volatile in
Of
terms of the
course,
Hindu Muslim stuff and everything. So because
far,
of that,
it's
like
much more socially integrated,
yeah,
I'd say.
exactly, yes. So there was like this Hindu Muslim thing was like a very very new thing to me, like around
Mhm.
like you could say maybe like 2014ish. Around that time is like when like this clearly hit
बहुत
me,
बहुत
like
देर कर दी मेहरबान आते आते.
yeah, because like I moved from India when I was like
Hmm.
in middle school. Like I moved to Dubai for a while.
Which is
So
Kerala.
yeah, which is pretty much Kerala. So again,
Okay.
like there was no Hindu Muslim issues. Everyone seems very happy. I mean, now that
Mhm.
as I grew up and like I'm revisiting my old friends and everything,
Mhm.
obviously things seem to have changed a bit, even in Dubai, like my old friends from Dubai. But yeah, so So because of that, I guess like it took me a while to like completely get my mind grasped around this whole like how much of a division there is in our country and how this is not something new, how it's always been there. So everything was like an
Hmm.
enlightenment to me because every day I read something and I'm like, this is so crazy. Like, why would people say this? Why would people do this? And then I read more about it. And then I see like, okay, so this incident has a past. And then I read about the past and I come to know, oh, this Hindu Muslim thing in this certain district or in this certain state has been happening for a very long time. So
Yeah.
it was all pretty much news to me. And like, obviously, it all came crashing down after 2014. That is when I realized like how far this has been going on. Like, so yeah,
So
that's where like you could say like I started forming strong political opinions about things.
So let's take a step back. This is something that I like
Right.
to do. So let's take a step back and go before 2014.
Right.
Um, and I'm trying to go back into time where you'd think that your political identity or political ideas are not as strongly formed, right?
Okay.
How did you look at India in general as a country, and whatever like basic जैसे बेसिक पॉलिटिक्स होता है ना जैसे कि
Hmm.
लाइक कि India has like 12 13 prime ministers whatever like
Yeah.
एक civic idea of India, how did you look at it
Okay.
basically?
So during my time, my childhood in Dubai and everything,
Mhm.
like India was like, it was always treated like, oh, this is our homeland. This is where we always will go back to. Because obviously, like in Dubai, living in Dubai, there is no like long term expectation of living there because, you don't get citizenship and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So there's always been this thing like, India is our homeland. That is where we will return to. That is where we are from. And so there was always this immense pride and love for India, like we have always had it, like, and I studied in an Indian school in Dubai, so Republic Day, Independence Day, everything, like, we celebrated it, brought flags to school, and
Hmm.
it was always nice, like, and like everyone just seemed to be on the same page with that in that regard. So there was never an issue of like, oh, you're Muslim, you're from Pakistan, like, that was never an issue. And like when you live in Dubai, you obviously live among like a huge, like a melting pot of cultures. So I had like a lot of Pakistani friends and everything, and like I never felt like, oh, India Pakistan, like, maybe like, I mean, I don't watch cricket, but like when people
Hmm.
discuss cricket, like they talk about like, oh, India Pakistan. So I was like, okay, that's the extent of like the, what do you say, the rivalry, you can say, with India Pakistan and things like that. So in general, like India was just like, and obviously I used to go on vacations and go to Kerala, and it was just fine. Everything is fine. There was no enmity, there was no rivalry. I never felt any friction because of my identity or my
Hmm.
religion or anything like that. So that's how my childhood was. And like, I mean, we can get into like later on. Like
Hmm.
as I grew up, like now I go to Bangalore also often. I have friends there and
Hmm.
I have some family over there and all. And Bangalore, like I used to always like club it with South India, where I used to feel like, oh, South India, everything is calm, everything is like, everything is happy and everything. But Karnataka and Bangalore in general, obviously, I witnessed it change.
Especially the coastal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have like firsthand, like I can see the changes that has been happening in Bangalore, like in terms of the divisiveness in among people, like with religion, obviously. So
So
yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you. Basically, this is interesting. So basically, was there a moment before 2014? Oh, I mean, both of us agree that things are things are not
yeah,
right
yeah,
now,
yeah,
or have been for at least for the last 6 years, right? But
yeah.
was there a moment, and it could be after 2014 as well, but was there a moment where you felt, ki, boss, there is something weird about all this, and there is something weird about vis-a-vis my identity
Yeah.
to my country, like.
Yeah. So I guess like it wasn't like a single incident. It was like a slow buildup of things.
Hmm.
Like, because like a single incident, you obviously like, you tend to brush it off thinking like, oh,
Hmm.
it's obviously a one-off incident. But like, like online, I guess, like, when I started reading more about politics, because I was like, I need to know about what is happening and stuff. So I started reading, and obviously, like, when you read about like the government and everything, you tend to have opinions. and like just discussing with people, or like maybe online or whatever it is.
Hmm.
And then like there was always this pivoting of like any argument that you make, it always goes back to like, oh, you're Muslim, that's why you have this argument. And I'm like, no, I have this argument because of so and so reason, this is why I have this
Hmm.
opinion. And they're like, no, 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 we can't trust you people, you guys like should have gone to Pakistan. And that was like the shutting down of like any opinion that you have, and like sort of dehumanizing you, like as a person who can't have an opinion because your primary goal is like your religious
Yeah.
identity, your primary identity, and that is all you are. So all that stuff, like it was like a slow build up, obviously. And like I guess it peaked in 2014. I mean, like maybe like 2015, I guess. Like it must have peaked at that time, where I was like, okay, this like heart cynical guy like kind of feeling. Like I'm like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know, like what happened to India. Like where did this all go wrong and everything.
Great. So quickly, let me just stop you
Yeah.
there. When you say what happened to India, my
Yeah.
assumption is that at some point you felt that जो जो स्कूल लेवल का एक प्रोपोगंडा होता है, राइट? एवरी डे वी गो
Hmm.
टू स्कूल, वी डू, आई मीन एटलीस्ट इन, आई वेंट टू स्कूल इन इंडिया, राइट? सो इन इंडिया
Yeah.
स्कूल में यू डू लाइक द नेशनल एंथम एंड इंडिया इज माय कंट्री, द प्लेज ऑफ
Hmm.
एलिजियंस बेसिकली. So there's an element of propaganda, right?
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
in schools, um, which kind of normalizes this idea within you कि भाई India is a naturally decent country,
Yeah.
if not a great country. I mean, most of us grow up thinking India is a great country, but
Yeah. Yeah.
at the most basic, India is a decent country.
Yeah.
So when you say that, I feel that there was some idea at some point that hey, India is home and India is a good country to be in.
Yeah.
And um, did let's go let's go to your Dubai school days when when
Okay.
you had a mix of Pakistani and Indian
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Sri or whatever. Did from the Pakistani side, for example, was your Muslimness ever questioned because you are of Indian origin? Something like that ever happened?
No, actually, no, never actually. I mean, it might be because like Dubai is like a fairly large Muslim
Yeah.
population country, so everyone's like, like no one really questioned like in that way. Like I never received anything at least because I had a lot of friends who were Pakistani and like,
Also,
no,
did you ever find yourself defending India
oh yeah,
to these
I mean,
people?
like not in like in a hostile manner. It's more
हाँ
like
हाँ नहीं नहीं हाँ.
yeah, it was like it was always
Not
there, like
Twitter.
yeah, 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 but like just like yeah, obviously not Twitter. But like it was always there where we just like, oh, like see our economy is like this, it's so like robust, it is growing, it's so powerful, and like our army is so great, and they'll be like,
Oh
oh
my
no,
God.
but we also have fighter jets. Like just like basic level, like uninformed arguments. Basically, like during school days, obviously that's all we had. It was just like very simple arguments.
So
There was never any hostility or anything surrounding the India Pakistan thing.
let me tell you briefly about about me basically, and then
Yeah.
I'll want you to reflect on this. So I grew up in India,
Okay.
MP, North India.
Ah, okay.
Come from a family which is very right leaning
Hmm.
even today. Very matlab politically right leaning, like
Yeah.
involved in politics.
Yeah.
Um, and I have been going to Shakha up until I was 18.
Oh.
And yeah, and this is I'm talking about like 2004 5. I,
Okay.
mhm. And then after that, I left home to do my engineering, and that is when I developed my first friendships with Muslims. I had never had a Muslim friend before that.
Wow. Okay.
And even then like जब अरे आजकल के बच्चों को तो मोदी अभी पता चला, हम तो 2006-7 में मोदी को डिफेंड करते थे.
Hmm.
But had like debates with my Muslim classmates. But what
Yeah.
happened is that over time, I realized. So when I asked you about the moment, right?
Yeah.
Something that first hit me that I felt was out of ordinary was when you're especially when you do engineering in India.
Hmm.
There is this cool thing that you do is that you leave college hostel and move out to
Yeah.
like off
Yeah.
campus housing, right?
Yeah.
So started looking off campus apartments, and that is when I realized that if there is a Muslim who's with you
Hmm.
looking for an apartment, it's a thousand times more difficult for them to
Yeah.
land. an apartment. And I was
Yeah.
and in my head, India was this perfect country, right?
Yeah.
So this was like the first jolt.
Hmm.
And then this happened, and then slowly, like, this is the peak time, or maybe it's in my life, that the discussions around Afzal Guru is happening all around me.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I ended up reading Arundhati Roy's essay on Afzal Guru.
Hmm.
His life must be extinguished,
Yeah.
and that is the first time. And along with that, I accidentally got some Noam Chomsky and read it, and all of this kind of made me first question the whole idea of India as a nation and the way
Yeah.
it has treated all of its
Yeah.
people. Um, so what I want you to reflect on is, and of course it will be very different from mine, but
Hmm.
your journey vis-a-vis like some experiences like these that you might have had.
Okay. So one
Mhm,
pretty prominent example I can remember is, like I said about Bangalore,
mhm,
is I have a relative in Bangalore. He has a pretty, what do you say, like religiously ambiguous first name.
mhm,
Like, a lot of people in India have that.
mhm.
So his first name was like, like that. And he was looking for an apartment.
Like Samir, which could be anything.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Mm,
So he was looking for an apartment. He's trying to get his family to move to Bangalore. He got a new job and everything. And he's looking for an apartment. And he met with a landlord. He liked the apartment. And like, they were like almost closing on the deal. And towards the end of the thing, like, where like it's time to like, submit like whatever documents and like IDs and stuff like that just for the landlord. At that time, the landlord sees like, his last name is this thing, like a Muslim name. And he's just like, I can't give you an apartment. And like this relative of mine obviously grew up in Kerala his entire life. And he was like, I mean, he knew about like, there might be cases like, and he obviously asked him like, why not? And the landlord just tells him like flat out, oh, we can't give Muslims an apartment because the housing society, they won't allow Muslims to stay here. And like this happened with him like in almost like for like 6 months or something. Like he just couldn't find a stable place for him to stay, or like even if he could stay, like they were like, oh, you can't bring your family here. Muslims are like unclean and they eat non-veg, so we can't allow your families to be here. And this thing like because when I used to visit Bangalore, that was like much I guess like long before 2014 and all. Like when I used to visit Bangalore, it wasn't like this. At least I didn't feel it was like this. And I'm sure
agree.
there was probably some pockets of people like who had these sort of opinions and stuff, but it wasn't outward. Like it wasn't so direct, like where they just tell you to your face, like like, oh yeah, this entire housing society, they have a rule like we can't have Muslims over here and things like that. So this was one example which kind of made me feel like how Bangalore has changed, and it sort of reflected on like the entirety of India. How like I felt like then like I guess on Twitter itself, like every day there seems to be some story about like some person. I remember recently there was a girl who was trying to get an apartment, and like she's been
Yeah.
really struggling, and like yeah, you probably read it.
Yeah.
And like it was just so surprising to me at the time when it happened to my cousin, and I just couldn't pinpoint as to why. And then like I have a friend who's been my friend for like years and years and years, like since I was really young, and he grew up with me in Dubai and everything. And like once we were just talking about just about like general politics and all, and I was telling him about like this concept of like
Mhm.
like a systemic ghettoization of Muslims in India.
Yeah.
And I was telling him like how like the reason why like Muslims are forced to live in these like small areas which becomes a Muslim area eventually is because like even if they are working somewhere else or like studying somewhere else, they just don't get the opportunity to like rent out a flat over there, or a room over there, because people just don't give this
Mhm.
just don't give rooms to Muslims. And this is a person like who's been my friend for so long. He just says, oh yeah, that's because Muslims do illegal stuff, that's why. And
Brilliant.
you've been my friend for like 20 years, man. Like you're just making like these blanket statements. You know me, you know my family and everything. And he's like, yeah, like in India they do that. And I'm like, we both are living in the same India, man. It's not like is not like that. Where
So
like, yeah.
no, no, I'm saying you mentioned two interesting things. One
Okay.
is that you felt Bangalore has changed.
Yeah.
Like maybe, or maybe in your mind, Bangalore changed. Bangalore was not like that. At least that's what you felt,
Yeah,
right?
that's my
And
perception.
yeah, and that could be expanded to all of India. And
Yeah.
secondly, you talk about of this friend, right?
Yeah.
So definitely there
Hmm.
something happened, and that changed a lot of people. I, for one, believe that it was always inside. It
Hmm.
just found a way to come out. But
Exactly.
if I want you to reflect on this, can you, like, do you have theories on why is this so easy for whoever is selling these ideas of hate to sell them? Like,
Yeah.
why do they let me clarify.
Yeah.
Why does a large section of Hindu population in India hates Muslims so much?
Okay. So,
Your theories.
yeah. So obviously, like what I think is like when you feel like when a country like as India obviously was growing economically and everything, but
Huh.
there's always a wealth disparity and everything. So the middle
Mhm.
class is shrinking, and like so when the middle class shrinks, they always feel like the economy is the people like the government keeps telling us economy is growing, but I'm losing my job or like I'm not getting paid enough. I'm hardly able to take care of my family and everything, and there is always this void because people don't understand like what exactly is happening, why are things not working out, like even though like is every day drilled in head like, oh, economy is growing, India is financially on the way to surpass China or whatever. So when politician comes with like a solution, they say, oh, this is the reason, or not even politicians, just anyone who comes and says, oh yeah, we have finally found the reason why you are not able to why the country is not able to grow economically, why you are not able to support your family, and the reason is because the past politicians have been what do you say? What's the word for it? I'm trying to think, but
Appeasement.
like, yeah, exactly, appeasing minorities, appeasing this so-called minority, which is like a huge population, and the population keeps increasing. So they are the reason. So obviously Muslims are like presented as a scapegoat for all problems, and they say like as long as the appeasement stops, economy is gonna grow. And it starts off as like as like, oh,
Mhm.
we need to stop the appeasement and all, but then like over time, I'm assuming like it turns into like an anger towards a certain society, in this case Muslims obviously, like it becomes anger eventually. And I think like obviously this piled on to uh, an already built perception in their minds that I'm because I know a lot of people who have been hearing like Muslims are the bad people since their childhood, and I guess for a very long time it was like kind of taboo to like voice these opinions out in public, but like now it's obviously changed. So when they
Yeah.
have already had this sort of opinion, and then like someone comes to you and says, oh yeah, we have like this data, or like we have this financial backing to like not financial backing, like we have this data to prove to you that appeasement of minorities uh, is what is keeping you down, that is what is keeping Hindus in general down, is because these minorities have been taking a large chunk of resources and everything. So and this is very similar to what I've read before about like uh, in Germany, what they used to do with Jewish
Yeah.
people. Obviously, it's not on the same scale or anything. I'm not making a
You
comparison,
don't
but
have
like,
to qualify it, my man.
yeah,
Who knows? Like, it's
yeah,
not one day, it doesn't
yeah,
happen in a
exactly,
day.
exactly. So there are a lot of parallels in that sense, where like I read about something like that, and I'm like, okay, this is exactly what people are being fed now, where like they keep demonizing, and they keep blaming Muslims for like every small problem that you have. Like they'll find a way to like somehow blame it on like the Muslims. So I think that is one major reason I feel that this
Yeah.
divisiveness has become so strong now.
Clearly, the economy, as it were, at least our numbers from 2004 to 2014 were much stronger than what they are at
Mm,
least in the last few years.
yeah,
And I keep reading news about how Indian economy is not doing as well.
yeah,
However, it doesn't seem to impact the
The
narrative at all.
supporters, yeah,
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 because it seems um, like they are मतलब if I put it in very bluntly कि मेरी एक आंख ले लो but as long as उस मुसलमान की दोनों आंखें जा रही है I'm happy,
hmm, hmm.
right? uh, and
So
honestly I don't have an answer for this. I just don't know what is behind this, but this nonetheless I find very surprising and very frightening
yeah,
that these people sorry, so basically what you mention is something that is like a line of argument that has been used in US as well, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Immigrants have been demonized
yes,
when it comes to India.
yes,
There seems to be a and what you talk about inequality is a very fair point. I think that because
yeah,
it's again similar in US as well,
yeah,
and I feel that this rising tide of right wing across the globe
hmm,
could be tied to the rising levels of inequality in our economy.
yeah.
Um, so do as someone who's I'd say is constantly thinking and examining your situation, have you
Yeah.
ever thought about connecting the dots between rising hates for minority and the overarching system of capitalism?
Uh, yeah, obviously, I believe there is a connection, even though it might not be as direct as I'd like. I won't, I mean, I think it might be, but there is obviously a connection to it because one major thing is like the wealth inequality, where like the rich keeps getting richer and the poor keeps getting poorer, and that is where you see the disappearance of the middle class. And like for any country to be a thriving country in any metric, like you need to have a thriving middle class. And when there is this disappearance of middle class is when people start getting more desperate, and like where they feel the sense of hopelessness, where like things just seem like no matter what I do, no matter I do engineering or like medicine or whatever it is, like there are no jobs, and where's my future going and stuff like that. And like obviously the easiest scapegoat are immigrants, or like othering of uh, a weaker section of society. So it just puts the like like shifting the blame from like the bigger picture, like the larger economic problems, where like people have to take responsibility. The financial minister, whoever it is, who are supposed to take responsibility, they're just shifting the blame, and they present
But
a
but
scapegoat in
she
front of the
makes
people.
such good halwa, man.
What?
She makes such good halwa.
Yeah, I saw that.
I
Yeah.
know this is a very sexist thing to say, but like it's eh, eh, anyway.
That
Let's.
is another thing I
Mhm.
feel like there is a lot of showboating in this new Modi government. It's like like with a finance minister, like she presented the budget in that
Yeah, in the
desi
Bahi
photo.
Khata.
Yeah, exactly. Like
So
there's a lot of showboating as opposed to like
yes, I
proper
completely agree.
problem solving.
So and this will so all the 10 listeners that I have, right? If anyone else listens to this outside of that, they will give me a lot of galis. But I think this is the very nature of a Hindu society. I say this as someone who was born in this in the
What do you mean?
faith.
What is the very nature of?
The showboating, because
I think that
look
actually
at
is
the go on,
is
sorry.
more of a, like an Indian thing. Like I don't think like it's just a Hindu thing. I think like India
A
in
lot
general,
of a
like
lot of I'm
yeah,
sorry, go on. No, you
yeah.
go on,
So I
and
was
then
just
I'll say.
saying that India in general, like they welcome all this like over the top presentation of stuff.
Yes, look,
And I don't
I
know, like
agree.
yeah, I don't know whether like is it because of her like how her entertainment system and everything is like it's so over the top that people are so used to seeing over the top stuff, where like just the general everyday subtleties are so lost on them that they don't feel like it makes an impact until like something grand happens.
So I think a lot of practices, even minority practices in India, are
Yeah,
hugely heavily influenced by Hinduism.
yeah, yeah,
It over time, this has just happened, right?
yeah,
And so a lot of the things. it's very difficult to like draw a line key where does Hinduism, the system of this in Hinduism ends and
Yeah.
the larger picture of India begins. Because one thing that I keep mentioning is that if you ever visit North India,
Hmm.
you will see all these houses, and outside these houses in Hindi, there's a swastika drawn, and
Yeah.
around the swastika, there's written Shubh Labh. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever noticed that.
No, I've noticed it.
You've noticed it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So Shubh Labh is basically Lakshmi's sons or daughters or something, goddess
Yeah.
Lakshmi's, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that profit, Labh is profit,
Hmm.
and the idea that profit is so important
Hmm.
that you have it as one of your most popular religious iconography
Yeah.
tells you a lot about how the system functions. Um, it is a lot about how it is seen and
Hmm.
perceived rather than reality, and that is basically how this government has functioned in the last 6 years, right? Like
Yeah.
Modi ji
Definitely.
is a lot about how everyone what everyone thinks of him
Yeah.
rather.
Yeah. Rather
So
than who he is actually. Yeah.
exactly, and this is a little frightening because in the end he wants to come like a lot of this is happening because he wants to be seen as someone, right? Like for
Exactly.
example, uh, the whole Balakot thing, right?
Yeah.
Um, and again, abhi to after Devinder Singh, I have a lot of questions about that too. But for a moment, let's just assume it
Yeah.
happened
Let
the
me.
way we saw it, right? The fact that now the stakes are so high that now if anything happens in the future, any prime minister of India, even if it is a non-BJP prime minister, will have to
Mhm.
react
Exactly.
in those measures because
Yeah.
otherwise they will be
Misinterpretation.
lesser.
Yeah.
Uh, which brings me to the next point. How do you? We were just talking about the hate in general that
Yeah.
there is. It seems. How do you think Pakistan fits into this narrative? Because a lot of the times when I talk to these people, people who are the bhakts or even
Yeah.
like right of center Hindu leaning
Yeah.
folks, they mention that there is Pakistan, which is a
Mm.
Muslim dominated country, and everything that India does,
Yeah.
um, they reflect it on Pakistan कि देखो वहाँ पे क्या हुआ, and that's how they justify it. So in your political worldview, how does Pakistan fit in all this?
I honestly feel like I know
Hmm.
this is like I don't know, but like I honestly feel like at this point, like India really shouldn't be like comparing itself to Pakistan, like economically and whatever defense or anything, because India, we had at one point reached a center stage in the world where like we were in the main discussions among like like when there were discussions surrounding like the next superpower and all. India was a
Hmm.
serious contender over there.
Yeah.
And at this point, like I remember, I don't know which magazine it was. Was it Time magazine or like I don't think it was Time, but there was. I remember seeing the cover where like they had all the major world leaders. It was like a drawing, and there was Trump, there was Putin, there was Angela Merkel, there were a bunch of them, and there was Imran Khan, but there was no Modi.
Interesting. I'd love that. Agar if you find that link, just send it to me. That will be something
Yeah,
very interesting to share.
yeah.
Um,
So things like that, like, and I feel as if like we have completely lost the plot at this point. Like this government came into power, like among other things, they were also promising like economic development and everything, and like people always use that as a
on the
reason
outside.
why they, yeah, exactly, they obviously they always used it as a reason, like why they support Modi, and they're like, oh, even though he has done all these things, but I do believe like he will bring India forward economically and everything, but then like you see like India just not really able to keep up with the momentum that we had before 2014, and everything is like falling right now, and I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
Oh,
So yeah,
it's not
basically that.
compared to Pakistan.
Yeah, exactly. So like I just don't feel like it just doesn't make sense to me, like personally, like why is there a reason that you compare everything to Pakistan, like even outside economy, like when you say like, oh, this thing has happened in India, like a like a crime has happened in India, and we say like, oh, this is so bad, and they're like, oh, go see what's happening across the border, And I'm like, why is Pakistan like a role model for you? Like you feel as if like as long as we are like slightly better than Pakistan, like we are fine. Like that shouldn't be our goal, right?
That's all that is care about right now.
Yeah. So
Care.
like I feel as if like we shouldn't even have that in our equation. Like if you're trying to be like rational and everything, we shouldn't even have Pakistan as our in our equation for like any sort of metric.
I think that's a fair point. Also like right before recording this episode, I know that you were busy participating in an anti-CAA protest. So
Yeah.
clearly, there is like the idea of India means something to you.
Oh yeah, it is
One
still
that
very
is why one does these things, right? That
yeah,
is why one goes out and participates in these
exactly.
things.
Yeah.
So in 2020, uh, what does it mean for you to identify as an Indian when we know that a large section of India is basically rejecting you?
Exactly. So, I don't know. I like for me personally, like a lot of people might assume that when Muslims are getting demonized so horribly at
Hmm.
this point, like it sort of pushes you away from loving the country and everything. But for me personally, like I feel as if like now is the time to take back the country as we know it. And with this protest and everything happening around, I feel as if that is a possibility. But then I don't know, maybe I'm being too optimistic because we can get into like how the
just
government
just
hacks the EVM or whatever, so but like in general I feel as if people have come together for a singular cause, and this NRCCA and all that has provided people an outlet to come together for a single cause, like as one. That is just my
this is
perception about like what is happening right now. And like me, obviously, like I've never had any hatred towards India as a country. There
I
was
am not saying that.
no, 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 I'm not insinuating you said that. I'm
Yeah,
just saying like in general, like even though like I've discovered like over time that how majority of the population view Muslims, I've honestly still felt as if like that there's a light of hope. Things can change, things will change, and so far it's not been going in that direction. But I still feel as if it can change eventually, because a lot of things I also believe are cyclical in nature, just like the economy, where like we have recession and then we have like good time. So I feel as if this right wing surge around the world will come to an end. I don't know like whether it's going to be like a peaceful end, because the last time there was this sort of a right wing surge, obviously World War II happened and everything like that. And I don't think something of that scale will happen, but there will be something that has to something strong enough, a force strong enough that'll come and eventually end this right wing surge that we see around the world.
I have to say though that the kind of protests that have happened in India and outside
Yeah,
and these anti-CAA protests have given me a lot of
yeah,
a lot of hope.
yeah.
Simply because f- before this, I had thought that I had completely given up on the idea that Indians will ever come out on streets,
Hmm.
ever do anything
Hmm.
of that sort. And I
Yeah,
honestly felt that there are too many against the kind of idea of India that you and I are talking about here,
yeah.
and that is why it's
And
almost
to be completely honest,
mhm.
I was so surprised to see the amount of people who actually come out in India to protest against this. And
Exactly.
it just gave things like when I see that, it gives me hope. Like obviously, it is not as bad as because social media and everything kind of puts us in a bubble where
Oh my God.
you
Yeah, I have a question for this as well, but
yeah, so well, you're constantly bombarded with hate and everything, and you kind of develop this perception is this what the entire country is? But then when you step out and you see the level of protest and everything happening, where your fellow Indian brothers and sisters are standing shoulder to shoulder with you and fighting for your right. Like the Hindu population who are protesting, obviously they are safe, but they have come out put themselves in danger to support your right to be a citizen in India. and that obviously makes me feel very good. Like it makes me feel happy. It gives me
That
hope.
that is essentially, yeah, and that is basic. I don't really personally, I don't really care about any economic or anything. This is why
Yeah,
I want India to sustain itself, because of this
yeah,
idea that there are
exactly,
people who can have completely different faith-based ideas and still stand shoulder to shoulder.
exactly.
Which brings me to the one question that I had from you. So I have for the longest time believed that Twitter will make extremists of all of us. I think just being on Twitter, uh,
Yeah,
the idea of retweets and likes
yeah,
is fueled by this, like you have to constantly take a more extreme position
yeah,
just to make sure that it's even seen,
exactly.
right? How has the social media correspondence
So
shaped
I,
you? Firstly, that, and
yeah,
on a lighter note, if you have access to it right now, some of your favorite hate messages that you've received, can you like read one or two for me?
yeah, yeah, definitely. So obviously, I completely agree with you, and
Hmm.
I've never thought about it that way, but it makes complete sense where you said like you need to keep taking a more and more extreme position.
Yeah.
And I see that like because like in with Indian politics, since I'm so involved with it
Hmm.
and through Twitter or something, it is more of an organic move towards a more and more like what do you say, like a confined position,
Yeah,
political opinion and everything. But like with American politics, like it always surprises me, especially like because I'm a huge supporter of Bernie Sanders. I really
me
like
too.
his politics and everything. Oh yeah, I remember you and Amit were talking
Yeah.
about Bernie. I know Amit is also a supporter of Bernie.
Yeah.
So when I see Bernie and I'm like, okay, yeah, his policies make sense and all. And then
Hmm.
like out of the blue, like it'll be hit, like I'll be hit with like a tweet where like it'll be so far to the left and they'll be like, oh, why isn't Bernie enacting this policy? And I'm like US is not ready for that sort of like,
Yeah.
policy. Like you need to take it one step at a time. But then like now since you said it, maybe since I'm so involved in Indian politics that I don't notice this gradual shift of opinions where like you confine yourself to a smaller and smaller hole like where like it just becomes like impossible for someone to relate with your opinions because they are so far to a certain like to the right or to the left. Like
So
I
so for
completely
just for a moment, Bernie, right? Recently there was this whole thing about Bernie being sexist,
yeah
and my biggest fear, just for a moment on American politics, my biggest fear is that what will happen is that Democratic Party will, whoever is the nominee, be it Bernie or anyone else, they will elect a nominee, and then a large section of the Democratic voter base will sit at home because that specific nominee does not pass all the purity tests
yeah.
that are out there.
So I
And
remember something similar
Mhm.
happened in the previous election, yeah, where like Bernie was
Yeah,
ousted from the party and the Bernie Bros, as they
a
call
lot
them.
of them moved to Jill Stein,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
like had all the people who voted for Jill Stein, even 10% voted for her, to
Hillary.
Hillary in
Yeah,
Philly, it would have been completely different.
yeah.
But
It makes complete sense, and it is something. It's so sad to think about it, but like like I understand. Like it's easy for me to say like people need to think tactically when it comes to politics, where like like you should have a bigger goal in mind and like work towards that. But like over time, especially with like American politics, where like this entire process is so dragged. Like I remember I started watching the debates when like
Mhm.
a few months ago they started the debates. Yeah, I've been watching them, and like elections are not even until November.
November.
So by then, like people form these strong opinions, and like there's so much enmity within the Democratic Party. Like, and it just like I remember with a lot of Kamala Harris supporters, like completely hated Tulsi Gabbard supporters,
Yeah.
and they hated Bernie supporters and everything.
I mean,
And like
Tulsi Gabbard deserves some hate, by the
oh yeah,
way.
of
Just
course.
saying.
I don't support Tulsi at all, 0%. But I'm just saying like in and like when Kamala Harris didn't qualify for the debate, I remember like everyone else came and they were celebrating it and stuff. And like so that means you're just pushing away the Kamala Harris supporters, like and there is a possibility like like they vote for the other party just to spite you. Like I don't know whether that's a realistic possibility, but I'm just saying, like, you keep pushing away people who are supposed to vote for the party, but like you keep pushing them away because of the candidates. And eventually
I
it just completely demolishes the overall larger objective, which is to beat Donald Trump.
I think when it comes to American politics, the goal for both political parties at this point is not to get more voters. It is to ensure that the voter of the opposite party sits at home.
Yeah.
That is what happened in 2016, and that is what is the plan going in 2020.
Mm.
Like, it's obvious that if all people who support the Democratic Party, I'll go out on a limb and say that if all people who support the Democratic Party go out and vote, there's
Yeah.
no way that the Republican nominee will win. But
Mm.
it's always the goal to make sure that,
The other party sits at home.
yeah, so a lot of African Americans, I think, in the last elections sat home because they did not completely like Hillary, and that did have an impact. Which brings me to India. So this is the thing that we are just talking about is called in the internet lexicon, and I'm sure you've heard it, cancel culture, right?
Oh yeah.
Where you basically cancel someone
Yeah.
because they have said something which is
Which doesn't
which is
100% align with your views.
exactly. and
Yeah.
and then what happens is that there are people who associate with that person, not
Yeah.
even like saying that that whatever that person has said is that they just associate with that person, and you
Yeah.
are cancelled by association.
Yeah.
So it kind of keeps creating these small subgroups, and
Yeah.
especially, and this is a speciality of Twitter, right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the discourse in India, I feel both of us will agree that now is the time to build coalitions, an anti Hindutva coalition, if you will,
Mm.
which should be, I think,
Yeah.
led by the Dalit Muslim, whoever the
But
leaders are of
yeah.
India, and under their umbrella, everyone should coalesce, and this
Yeah.
is how things should move. However, I feel that within these groups also
Yeah.
there are so many divisions, and every day I see a new division coming up on
Yeah.
how, of course, there is a point that it's always easier on Twitter when it's always more microscopically visible on Twitter
Exactly.
than on the ground. On ground, everyone is more or less still working together. But according to you, what is the way forward from here?
So I completely agree with you. Where like cancel culture, obviously, to a certain extent, it works against your bigger goal. So, but like, and I obviously knowingly and unknowingly have been part
Mm.
of this cancel culture. But I do believe that
All of
there
us
is,
have.
yeah. So like, I sometimes like I feel it's warranted, where like
Mhm,
especially with like some liberals, for the lack of a better term, like
mhm,
where they try to play the part of a centrist, and like they try to do this balancing act of like if I criticize the far right, I have to
mhm,
criticize the far left. But like I understand the logic behind it, but I feel as if when things are so volatile, when you have such a powerful entity that is the government right now, who is like extremely far right, I feel as if like criticizing small things that Muslims do, or like small things that Dalits do, or like any minority group, Christians,
mhm.
whoever it is, any minority group, I feel as if that becomes counterproductive, and it provides fuel to like the far right narrative. So
It
I'm
strengthens
trying to
them.
put a specific example, but
Mhm.
I'm blanking out on a specific example. But yeah,
No,
for
I mean,
example, like,
mhm.
yeah, I remember like so Swati Chaturvedi and
Yeah, yeah,
Rohini,
Beja, yeah.
obviously, yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember like I had made a thread along with some other Twitter people, but like I'm the one who made the thread where and it was like a few, I guess it was like around 6 months ago. I had made a thread about about them both, and like they were
Mhm.
using this term called Musangi, which is like a
Yeah.
spin-off of Sangi.
Mhm.
So I understand like they have their reasoning for like coming up with a term like that and stuff like that, and obviously like if someone holds a view such as like a Sanghi, a typical Sanghi would hold, which is like Muslims are not part of India, they should be kicked out, and like
Mhm.
if another person holds that way, I can understand the parallel. But like they were like liberally using that term for
For
anyone who like
everybody.
yeah, exactly. So like if like obviously I'm open to like debates about religion and everything. I have no issue like having, and I'm not a super religious person. I mean, maybe over
Twitter
time.
will make you. Twitter
Yeah, I
will make
feel
you.
as if like like now since like things are uh, so
Mm.
crazy right now, like I feel as if I've grown a little more protective of my little faith that I have right now. But the thing is, like, I'm open to like debating stuff and having a like a regular discussion. Like there is a very prominent Sanghi account called Agent Saffron. It's like
Yeah, Vanara, right?
yeah, exactly. So
हाँ,
I've
ये
had like
सब
actually
देखते हैं.
fairly like decent discussions about religion where like, because
हाँ,
I don't know, maybe that account like uh that person like he doesn't like abuse you and stuff like that. So I'm open to having like debates. Even if you're a Sanghi and stuff, I'm still open to having debates and stuff like that. But like a lot of these people like who tend to play this balancing act, they don't want to have a discussion. So, for example, like the topic of the hijab, I personally believe that obviously it is up to the woman, like, she
yeah,
gets to choose whether she wants
of
to wear it
course.
or she
Yeah.
doesn't want to wear it. That's entirely up to her. And that is my position. So, when someone says, like for instance, I remember Rohini Singh, I think, I don't know whether I should be dropping names like this, but
अरे it's fine.
yeah.
चार लोग सुनते हैं यार. बहुत नाम ड्रॉप किया, no big deal.
So, I remember her specifically saying, like, uh, that women who wear hijab by their own choice are not wearing it by their own choice. It is due to internal misogyny, internalized misogyny.
Mhm.
And I know that term. I know what internalized misogyny is, and it is a very powerful psychological thing where, like, and usually it is used in situations where like a woman stays in an abusive relationship because she
Yeah.
believes that that is the duty of the wife. Like, it is a very powerful term. Like, and I felt as if like she was trivializing it so much to a point where like oh, you're wearing a piece of cloth on your head because of this. And like, and I didn't contribute to that discussion, but I remember there were people who were saying that no, like, why can't she make a choice by herself? Are you saying that Muslim women are not able to make a choice uh, by themselves for like for keeping up their faith and upholding their religion or whatever? Like, if you're a practicing Muslim, like, a woman is capable of making that choice. So if she's doing it by her own choice, like, there is no question of like internalized misogyny and all. Maybe there is, but like I feel as if it's a very far-fetched argument. But
It's yeah, it's
yeah.
so first of all,
So I remember like, so when this person made this comment, that's the first time like I saw her responding with like, oh, you are a Muslim or something along that line. So I was very surprised. I was like, you're equating him to a Sanghi because like he was being pretty cordial. Like he wasn't abusing and all. Because I believe like a lot of Muslims
Mhm.
obviously like support a lot of the liberal journalists, and because
Yeah,
you view them as like these are people who are on our side. So he was being very courteous and everything. But the fact that she just flipped so quick and like she said this, she used this term Musangi, it kind of like made me feel like why do you feel the need to like just cast away this person for having a different opinion or like having a debate with you. And yeah, so I made this like huge thread about like
hmm,
how this term is actually like why you shouldn't
evolved.
be using this term, because you're equating like the oppressors with the oppressed.
Hmm.
and and it's sort of like it gained a lot of traction, and like they both blocked me on my old account. no, I think Swati blocked me, but like Rohini didn't block me. But and it was like a huge discussion, and I felt as if like now thinking back on it, I don't know. I personally like I feel as I sort of regret it because that thread created a huge division in on
I
Twitter.
still see it today.
Yeah,
So well, I agree and disagree on your certain things,
yeah,
and let me. So first of all, the thing that I completely agree with you on is that in this point, in at this time in India, we should
yeah,
be very careful before be very careful and try and avoid demonizing any minority,
yeah,
even if tangentially.
yeah,
So that is something that has to be kept in mind.
yeah,
um and Swati, I mean, she's okay. I don't really, but someone like Rohini, I do respect her because of the things that she has done, especially with the whole Amit Shah and
Oh yeah,
the
these
Jay
both
Shah and all those.
journalists, I
You know,
completely respect their work. Like I have no issue with their work. I feel as if they're good at what they do. Like there is no doubt
uh,
about that.
having said that, so and this is something that I want you to like tell me. So I know that this is not the right time, and I know that there is a far bigger fish to fry
Yeah,
vis-a-vis Hindutva right now. But would you be comfortable? Like, so how should a good ally
yeah,
call out? Um, I, and I'm asking this question, and I'm asking this question just because I think this is something that should be discussed. I don't know if
yeah,
how important it is, but like we cannot deny that there are definitely mm, in every faith
yeah. Of
more
course,
more conservative elements and then less
of course.
moderately less conservative
Yeah,
elements. For example, uh, just to give an example, Pakistan, there is a clear division between how the Sunni power
yeah.
structures deal with
Exactly.
Shias and others, right? So would you be comfortable in standing with people who, if they had been given a choice, if they were um, a majority, just like the BJP is right now, would have treated um, the other group exactly the same way? Like, would you feel comfortable about it? Secondly, and I
Yeah,
think this is the more important question,
yeah.
um, Bismarck famously has said something that I really, really find very important. He says that politics is the art of possible, the attainable, the art of the next best.
Mm,
Basically, what he's trying to say is that ultimately, when it comes to the ground realities of politics, we will have to compromise.
yeah.
What I'm like, so like that you and I can think a lot of things. Frankly, I don't really care about the idea of nationhood also,
Hmm.
frankly.
Okay.
But I know that a general person living in a small town India feels very differently about things. And if
Yeah.
eventually we have to reach out to them for a vote, we will have to mellow down a lot of our positions.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
how much of your current political identity are you willing to compromise slash negotiate uh, vis-a-vis both sides, Hindu,
Yeah.
like far right Hindu and far left, or what I will call very conservative Muslims.
Yeah.
So just yeah, let's just start. Like, how much of it is on table to be compromised?
So, like, like the general position among like minorities and like a lot
Hmm.
of people, even Hindus and everyone, is like Congress is like a soft Hindutva party,
Yeah,
right? Like that's what they say.
yeah. Hmm.
But when the choice was between Rahul Gandhi and Narendra Modi, obviously I would support Rahul Gandhi. I was
Yeah,
speaking favorably for him because I knew like we need to think about like when it comes to politics, you need to always be tactical. Like personal opinions and Twitter debates and everything is very different, but when it comes to larger,
ground politics.
yeah, ground politics, like it is very imperative that we are tactical because we form these like small bubbles in our minds, like with our opinions and everything, and like you can't obviously expect like a person who lives in rural India to like align with your politics. So when it comes to the larger picture, I feel it is very important that you need to compromise on certain things to for the larger goal. So that is how I view politics in general. Like there is
Hmm.
always compromises. Like there is no politics without compromise because obviously you can never find a politician who is perfect, right? So everyone needs to make compromises, and it's not like I feel like who like Asuluddin Owaisi should be the PM or anything like that.
I would love that, by the way, but sorry, go on.
Like I just feel as
The
if like
day,
the
just
party
a
needs
second, the
to grow.
day someone like Owaisi or even someone like Mayawati
Yeah.
becomes India's prime minister is the day that I will truly feel in love with this country. And well, this is just something that I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that, but I'm just saying, like, like from a political standpoint, I just feel as if the
It's
party has
today
not.
not possible today. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the thing. So, like, when there is a realistic chance of like Rahul Gandhi or like whoever it is from another national level party, which is Congress, of becoming the PM of the country, obviously, I feel as if it is our duty to like move our support towards them. so that we can achieve a larger goal, which is to get rid of the Hindutva party, which is the BJP. So yeah, to answer your question, my personal morals and everything, I'm obviously always willing to make like reasonable compromises to achieve the bigger goal. That is just my view on like how politics should be done.
Um, so, um, so let's just quickly talk about the way forward
Okay.
um, here. Yeah, and I guess both of us agree that the the way forward will be like whatever is happening on Twitter,
Hmm.
leave it aside and work together.
Yeah.
I think what is um, I think what needs to be understood is even within the liberal circles is that what kind of divides us is far less important than what unites us.
Hmm.
Even just quickly on the choice thing, hijab and choice.
Yeah.
I find this debate discussions a little pointless because और थोड़ा सा philosophical हो जाएगा शायद but what exactly is choice like if you grow up in South India or if you grow up in India right
Yeah.
if you grow up as a Muslim in India for example
Hmm.
you will not suddenly um, start loving chicken fajitas you'll always love biryani right
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
because mm, that every step in your life there have been moments that have conditioned you to like
Yeah.
a certain thing and you've never really like the experience of whereas if you were born in Mexico for example
Yeah.
99.9% time you love chicken
You
fajitas
love
and
us.
find biryani some
Yeah.
more spicy so when the notion of choice is very tenuous right like what is choice at the end of the day if I see my mother doing something if I see my sister doing something if I see something that seems righteous
Yeah.
so good I will do it and it's the same with hijab right
Yeah.
like I can as a woman make a conscious choice to wear hijab
Yeah.
and feel that it is my choice and even then it is not entirely my choice and I can similarly as an Indian female keep karwa chauth a Hindu
Yeah.
female keep karwa chauth see ये तो हालत है Indian female Hindu female सब एक हो गया अपने लिए keep karwa chauth and I feel that I am doing it out of the romantic feelings toward my husband when it is also something that has been fed to me
Yeah.
um,
I mean, obviously that makes sense, like from a philosophical point of view, because that that just completely picks apart the entire argument of like what is
yeah
wrong.
Twitter doesn't allow for this right you cannot put
Yeah.
this on Twitter because इतना nuance तो Twitter में
No, it doesn't work on Twitter. So one example is like for instance, like my sister. She used to not wear the
Mhm,
hijab. She got
mhm,
married, and like my brother was like, yeah,
mhm,
whatever. You want to wear it, you don't want to wear it,
mhm,
it's cool. Like, but then later on, she started wearing it because you know I never asked her the reason and all, but like she just said like she wanted to start wearing it, so she started wearing it. So this is like my sister's example, but I feel as if
mhm.
like even though like growing up like she was never forced to wear the hijab and stuff like that, but then she consciously made a decision at some point in her life like maybe she read stuff, maybe whatever it is, like she made a conscious decision, like maybe like something that got her closer to her towards her faith, and she started wearing a hijab. So
Yeah.
that is one reason, like I mean that is one thing that my mind always goes to when people say like
But don't you also notice that a lot of Muslim men, for young men, have
yeah,
started like I think more Muslim young men keep dadi than their fathers, and I think that one of the reasons is because the religion in general has been
uh,
demonized so much that you almost try and hold on to it more
yeah,
strongly than you would in a normal situation.
yeah,
So
yeah,
a- and
that is
and that
100% true, like
kind of and that kind of brings me
like,
to a more difficult question. Do you hello? Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, so, and that kind of brings me to a more difficult question. Do you think, in way forward, when dealing with people who are on the center or right of center, even, do we need to soften the way we talk about, for example, Hinduism or certain practices within the religion to be more accessible to them and to have them be more approachable towards us?
So uh, it's kind of a difficult question because most of the times I feel as if
Yeah, I know.
like people lash out on Hinduism out of nowhere. Is especially like when like sometimes even I do that, like where like it's usually like it just comes out of nowhere because like you know it's sort of like when you bottle up everything where
Yeah,
you've been like completely deep
yeah.
into everything, it just sort of comes out. So one reason I feel as if like a lot of people like Hindus, I mean Muslims have been like at least on Twitter like have been like bashing a bit of Hinduism here and there, like talking about casteism or like whatever it is.
Hmm. We were talking about the way forward. So something that you were just alluding to, and I have also noticed, is which is almost a nice thing, is that this newfound is Muslim assertion, especially
Yeah,
on Twitter,
yeah,
where there is a bunch of guys, you and some other folks, who
yeah,
are very vocal about the Indian Muslim identity
yeah,
on Twitter, and
yeah,
talk about how it is almost illogical to compare the Indian idea of secularism with anyone else, especially Pakistan.
yeah,
Um, and I'm also seeing that this new assertion sometimes gets into direct conflict with, like we talked about, someone like Rohini
yeah,
and her idea,
yeah,
which we kind of also need to get on board, like get together at least, so that
yeah.
we can look at the common enemy. So what? So, and I know you were already talking about it, but how do you feel about this new assertion, and how much do you feel is there room for compromise
Hmm.
within this identity to enable? Because some, so you recently must have read, I mean, as assume kar raha hu main, but
Yeah.
you would have read my piece on News Laundry, right? And
Uh,
uh, the Hindutva
yeah.
male masculinity, I don't know if you पढ़
Mm.
लेना बाद
Yeah,
में.
yeah, yeah.
So basically, I realized that the moment we start talking about religion, there is
Mm.
another religion in front, and somehow the moment you talk about like a common larger identity,
Yeah,
which starts pointing out at Hindutva as the problem, a lot of people who follow the Hindu faith shut themselves off, and
yeah,
it and eventually it becomes a problem in forging alliances. So let us focus on this, how you feel about the new Muslim assertion that is
yeah.
happening, and also how much will this assertion allow um, compromise, if it will at all, and if it does,
Mm.
if you think it should not, even fair, just elucidate on your point.
So, uh, I obviously am very happy about this, like, this
Hmm.
assertion where, like, the term for it, I remember it was unapologetically Muslim. I like that. Like,
Hmm.
I feel as if it has given uh, a voice to Muslims, which I feel as it has been lacking for a long time. So that is obviously I'm happy with that. And like you said about forming alliances, and I remember I don't know whether you follow this person Rambi on Twitter. He's a pretty big
I do. Everyone
what
does.
do you say like yeah, you obviously yeah, he has like 40,000 followers. He's a huge account.
Yeah.
So I remember he had given a reason of like why like a general liberal Hindu person like would tend to stray away from this sort of like a Muslim assertion is because like he was saying like and it made a lot of sense to me when I read it. It was basically like how they had to like a liberal Hindu had to let go of a lot of their religious practices to become a liberal. Like
Yeah.
a lot of things that they might have
Hmm.
considered to be regressive, they had to let go of that to be considered a liberal. And to see like Muslims asserting their faith instead of doing what they had done to become a liberal. Like Muslims are asserting their faith even more. They're saying that, oh, we are like unapologetically Muslims. They feel like they had to make the sacrifice, but then the Muslims didn't have to make that sacrifice to become a liberal. Like so, and
Hmm.
to draw parallels to it, like I feel as if like when Black Lives Movement in US when that first began,
Yeah.
there was this there was this what do you say? There was a counter movement, All Lives Matter,
Yeah.
right? So which was done by like a lot of people, like obviously on the right wing also, but there was a lot of like the general public who were sort of like, yeah, like you can't just say only Black Lives Matter. Obviously, all lives matter. Like there were people who were saying that as well. So I feel as if that's a parallel towards like what is happening with like India in terms of like how liberals tend to not completely accept this new group of people who are rising at least online with their Muslim assertion. And I feel as if like how we mentioned earlier, like when you get pushed to a corner for so long, you tend to hold your faith more dearly. Like when you're pushed to a corner for your faith for so long,
Yeah.
you tend to hold on to it more dearly. So, and I feel as if that sentiment is not going to go away at least anytime soon. Like this Muslim assertion, I think it's only going to get stronger. But obviously, like I feel as if there is a responsibility among Muslims also to make sure that it doesn't, like it stays as like this is my identity, and I'm happy with it, and like I'm not going to let go of my identity. It should stay within that sphere. Like it shouldn't surpass that and go into a more extremist, or like not extremist, more like more fundamentalist side. That is what I feel. For like the long term, I feel it is actually good that Muslims are voicing their identity and their opinions and everything from the standpoint of a Muslim, because I feel like it is important for Muslims to speak about like what what is going on with them, like particularly with them, in the same
Hmm.
way like how I feel like any other marginalized community needs to speak about their problems, instead of like being like, oh, we are all Indians, we should speak like like, oh, these are Indian problems and we should speak like that. Like,
Which
no.
paper over a lot of problematic things.
Yeah. So I just feel like it is important, like, and I'm very happy with this. And especially like on Twitter, it's a nice small community of like people, like
Yeah.
a lot of them are like funny and like we make jokes and everything. It's nice,
They,
like.
even within the Muslim community, so there is someone like Arfa Khanum Sherwani, right, who is very active, who's very respectable,
Yeah, yeah,
and yet she s-
yeah,
still holds on to a certain idea of जिसे कहते हैं गंगा जमनी तहजीब, whatever it means,
yeah, yeah,
and she even
yeah,
gave a speech in Shaheen Bagh recently where she said that yes, it is important to say la ilaha, but maybe we
yeah.
should not do it in this platform. What are your thoughts on this?
So my mom, when I was speaking to her like a few days ago,
Hmm.
not a few days ago, like a little longer than that, she told me the same thing.
Hmm.
She was telling me like, see, like all these protests and everything happening is very nice, like I'm very happy with it, but she personally didn't like the fact that people were chanting la ilaha illallah while protesting. So I
Hmm.
asked her like, why do you feel like that shouldn't be said? She
Hmm.
said, and what she said is like, this would like it would create a like an aura around the protest where it seems like oh, this is a Muslims protest and this is only for Muslims, and would keep away like moderate Hindus. That's
Hmm.
what she felt. So, and I obviously I don't know, like I can't disagree with that point because it makes sense to me as well. But I feel as if like when 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 Muslims use like a slogan like la ilaha illallah while protesting, I feel as if like if something like that, like just a slogan that is part of someone's identity, like that to a marginalized community's identity, like
Hmm.
if them using that slogan scares you away so fast, like how strong were your values for like for whatever you're protesting, like how strong were your opinions and your values on that like few people chanting this would like scare you off from the protest. And I remember Shashi Tharoor also made a similar
Which is
statement.
and which is fair. Personally, I think that like the idea of Indian secularism is this, which is unlike something like a French idea of secularism. In Indian
Hmm.
secularism, everyone is religious. India is a deeply religious country.
Yes.
Everyone is religious, and um, uh, I would have loved, in fact, if there were in CAA protests, there was a group of people chanting "La ilaha," and then there were another group who was potentially chanting something like "Jai Shri Ram."
Yeah.
Sadly, that part is missing, and sadly, I'd love for that to happen, but
Hmm.
maybe it's maybe someday in the future लाजिम है कि हम भी देखेंगे.
Mhm.
But with that, I think we've had a long and very interesting discussion.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Yes.
I hope all of the audio is saved.
Mhm.
Um, and this has been a tradition in every episode that I've done.
Yeah.
Anything that you'd like to recommend to our listeners? Anything that you've recently read or
Yeah.
seen on Netflix, even anything?
Yeah. Uh, I'm a big fan of Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I I it started off when I first read his biography and everything long ago, and I remember there's an old movie about him. Yeah, it's called X. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Denzel, right?
Denzel Washington. Yeah.
Mm.
So uh, I would encourage everyone to like read up about him. Like his earlier part of his life is very questionable. So after I think in the beginning part of his life, like he was part of Nation of Islam and everything. Ignore that part. But after he became like an actual revolutionary, I feel as if it's very a lot of his speeches and everything are worth listening to or like reading and everything. So I would say everyone go check him out, read his stuff. It's 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 uh it's prophetic in a way. I feel like a lot of things he says about the media and about how the government oppresses people and everything. And obviously he was fighting for black people,
Mm-hmm.
African Americans at that time. But I feel as if a lot of things there are
Are
a lot of
very similar.
parallels. Yeah, there are a lot of parallels between his struggle, their struggle and what is happening in India right now. And apart from that,
Mhm.
make sure you follow me. My old Twitter account got suspended
I am following you
permanently.
everywhere, man. I saw
Oh yeah,
Brahmi's tweet and then I started following you again.
okay. Because my old Twitter account got suspended
So
forever.
like, is it completely done? Like you cannot ever recover it, yeah?
No, that I because like they give you one opportunity, one chance to appeal for it, and you appeal it. Like I wrote like a whole thing and like I gave proof and screenshots of what happened and everything, but like they just replied back saying that yeah, we're not gonna restore your account. So I had to make another one. I could have like read out some of the old messages that I received from ultra right wing people, but like I lost them. So there were a lot of
Oh man,
interesting messages
do
that I
you
used
not
to.
do you not remember some, like at least one that you like really remember,
I mean, I
please?
have one in my new account that I got just today at 10:30 in the
कुछ अच्छा
morning.
मजेदार होना चाहिए.
So he starts the message with like relax jihadi in like all caps.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, he's like don't get so hyper. You are a converted Muslim. Your parents got converted to Islam by Aurangzeb, and now you're calling him your father. Haha, what? And your Muslim dad. Islam came to India and it's just a man-made religion. I was like, bro, every religion is man-made. Ha ha ha. And then there was a
Why did
typo.
you
So
respond? Why would you
no,
respond to
I
that?
didn't respond. Like it just came in my mind.
Yeah, okay.
And then like he made a typo, so he corrected the typo in the next message. He puts the
See,
asterisk and it's like and equals about. And then is like
I
your prophet said God told them that Jews are cursed for their sins. Ha ha ha, what bullshit. Now more than 90% of Nobel he spelled wrong. Nobel Prize winners are Jews. So much Islam population, but less than 3% Nobel Prize for science winners. He clarified like science. Maybe he checked it and like he probably saw like only science were like okay, dominated by Jewish people. Ha ha ha. From childhood, you Muslims are taught only to be Allah ke bande. That's why you people are dumbos. That actually made me
so
laugh a lot. Like, when it's like from childhood, you're taught. Yeah,
first of all, you have to respect one thing. He's not just an ordinary Nazi. He's a grammar Nazi also.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And then I don't know where like he took this tangent on like Jews and stuff. He's like, you hate Israel, but most of the Arab people use Israeli technology. I'm like, I've never like hated on Jewish people. Like, I have no issue with Jewish people. But like, I don't
No,
know
no, but
where
this
he
is like
got
a
that.
standard 101.
It's just
This is standard 101
yeah,
Islamophobia, na? I mean, the moment you start on this journey, right? The moment you start
yeah,
reading stuff, they will start showing
yeah,
there are crazy Maulanas also, right? And they are on YouTube as well. And then,
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I had a, I had a discussion. I had a message from a random dude today who basically said that
Hmm.
Muslim women are subjugated and kept under parda, Therefore, Modi, like roundabout
Yeah.
way mein, therefore Modi ji
Hmm.
brought CAA so that Muslim women could come out and protest.
Hmm.
See, see the logic? Do you see the logic?
Master stroke, master stroke.
Exactly.
I love, like,
So with
these
that,
messages when I receive them.
Mhm.
Like, it's so entertaining. Like, I don't respond to them, but, like, I find it very entertaining. It's hilarious to me. And, like, sometimes I tweet, like, intentionally, like, like controversial stuff sometimes, like, where, like, I demonize, like, the RSS, or, like, I make some, like, crazy hyperbole statement, like, which is, like, to a rational person reading it will be like, obviously it's not true, he's just, like, being stupid. But, like, sometimes I do that just to, like, get some messages like this where, like, I can read them and, like, just laugh.
I will also recommend an article on News Laundry which I wrote.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
called "How the Hindu Man's Crisis of Masculinity Fuels Hindutva,"
Okay.
and I think it's a great piece. But I would actually, however many times it echoes, I would love for people to read and
Yes.
give me their
Yes.
honest feedback. And
Yes.
with that, it's a wrap.
मोदी की ऐसी धूम मची, विपक्ष में ना कोई पार्टी बची।